Searching for My Purple by Nicole Antoinette Lewis. I met my father coming down from my first acid trip. It was the spring of 1992, and I was 19. The night before, I had been at my friend Heather's house in her basement with our other friends. Heather was 1 year older than me, and she wore her hair long, limp, and dirty, like the 90s grunge musicians. Heather's basement was lush in purple. The lamps, chairs, and even the walls were painted purple. 4 Siamese cats lounged on the L-shaped sofa and stared at us with peculiarity and awe. I looked over. I saw my friend Jake. Waves of rainbow hues rippled through his skin. Suddenly, I remembered the night Jake told me that his grandfather was Cherokee Indian. That night, we traded stories about our families, took swigs of Schlitz malt liquor 40s, and bonded over our Native American ancestry. I'll never forget the glow of sincerity on Jake's face when he spoke about his legacy and how confident he was about where he came from. On the other hand, I spoke with uncertainty when sharing stories about my family history. I dashed across the hall to look at my reflection in the mirror. Magenta and crimson tones danced around my dark amber cheeks. I stood there, mesmerized as I stared at myself in the mirror. I traced the hues running through my face, replaying the stories my mom and grandmother told about their side of the family, and I realized I didn't know much about my father's side. I thought of Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze and how I used to tell elaborate stories high school about how he was my father because my dad wasn't in my life. I even took up guitar lessons to make it seem more convincing. It was easier to pretend that a dead rock star was my father than someone still alive who abandoned me. I fantasized about what it would be like to have a father who took me to the park, who walked around with me on his shoulders, and treated me like his little princess. Back in the room with my friends, I was fascinated by Heather's purple and blue tie-dyed t-shirt. It blended and swirled with bursts of color. I was enchanted, and purple became my obsession. With my arms swimming towards her, I said, I want to dive into your shirt. Can I have your shirt? I searched the basement for that particular shade of purple. Heather had a 24-pack of crayons that I rummaged through desperately, but I could not find that purple. There were magentas, plums, lavenders, and lilacs, but they all seemed to fade to black. My friends humored themselves and brought me clothing from a laundry basket. Is this the purple? What about this one? No! I answered in frustration because nothing seemed to fulfill what I was seeking. They thought it was hilarious. It was the break of dawn and time for me to go. I stepped out into the hazy Maryland morning, walked through the tall, uncut grass, moist with morning dew, which felt cool against my ankles, and the air filled with the sweetness of wild honeysuckle, and the sky was electric dark indigo. As I got into my car, I thought of my father, Charles Lewis. I longed to see him right then, but why? I hadn't seen him since I was 7. In a crowded courtroom where I sat on the stand testifying against him. As I unlocked the key to my apartment, I recalled that day in court. He sat across from me, staring at me with disappointment. As I told the judge about the last weekend he had spent with us, where he pretended to be a loving father. He took me and my mom Christmas shopping, and I was elated because I had a mom and dad. We were a complete family. Little did we know, he was casing our house to rob it. That night, I saw him come into my room, check to see if I was awake, and steal my grandmother's rings and necklaces out of her jewelry box. When his lawyer cross-examined me, I tried my best to avoid eye contact. But when we finally locked eyes, there was a disconnect. It felt as if I was looking at a stranger. Back in my room, the acid was still in full effect and my mind was racing. If I wanted to see Charles, would he want to see me? Would he still be mad? Maybe he would make amends and I would forgive him, and then we'd have the loving relationship I'd always dreamed of. But then another memory flashed before my eyes. I was 8 years old, sitting with my Aunt Sabrina, and she said words I would never forget. Charles is not your real father. The sun was coming up, and my room was glowing in the golden morning light. I was consumed with one thought. I wanted the truth. My skin began to tremble. I called my mother. She answered in one ring. What's wrong? She asked. It's 6 a.m. Mom, I want to see Charles. Who cares that he was a heroin addict who robbed us on Christmas Eve? I just wanted to see him. There was a long silence, and then she said, why? In a tone I had never heard her use. I know we haven't seen him in over 12 years, but I just want to know him again, I said with urgency. She was still silent. I didn't even hear her breathing. Mom? Did you hear me? Then, after a few more moments of silence, she said, Charles Lewis is not your real father. Mom, are you high? I asked, which was ironic because I was the one still tripping. Charles Lewis is not your real father, she repeated. Your real father is a man named Leon. My bedroom grew dark, and I looked out the window just as a cloud covered the sun. Nicole! Nicole, are you there? Her voice jolted me. Nicole? I'm coming to pick you up. I have somewhere to take you. I just need to make a quick call. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She said and hung up the phone. We drove south, headed to Washington, D.C. Although there was a fluttering in my chest and knots in my stomach, I embraced the roller coaster of emotions. I felt like I was in the Edvard Munch painting, The Scream. We pulled up in front of a red brick row house between two white houses. Dazed, I stared out of the window as I got out of the car. I wobbled as I walked up the 6 clay-colored cement steps to the entrance. Mom was in front of me. She opened the white screen door and knocked. A tall man with dark, ebony-colored skin opened the door. "Hello," I said in an uncertain whisper. "Hi, Nikki," he said with a confidence that surprised me. How do you know my name? Do you know who I am?" "Ask your mama," he said. "I'm your daddy." His upbeat and laid-back demeanor threw me off guard. I was mesmerized, staring at my biological father for the first time. I traced his face and found my features in him. His warm and gentle oval eyes. I found my eyes. In his smile, I found my smile. And in his childlike laughter, I heard my laugh. "Well, don't just stand there, come in," he said. The room was slightly dark, with hardwood floors, white antiqued couches, and turquoise walls. It was warm and welcoming. I sat on one of the couches, but we didn't have a long conversation. I was tired, overwhelmed, and coming down off LSD. My father sensed that I needed a nap, so he took me upstairs so I could rest in his king-size bed, while he and my mom stayed downstairs. I slept for hours. It took me a minute to remember where I was when I woke. I stared out of the arch-shaped window just as the sun was setting. The sky was covered in fuchsias, golden orange, and the most amazing shade of purple. I was home.
You just saw your piece performed in the Memoir Showcase. How are you feeling?
I am feeling excellent. I loved it. I feel divine. I feel like my story is brought to life.
What was it like to see someone on stage taking your words and bringing them to life for the audience?
It was magical. I loved watching her perform it. I loved the audience's response. It's a moment I'm going to always remember for the rest of my life.
What would you tell the people thinking of entering the Memoir Showcase contest?
Do it. It is life-changing, and it really helps you get confidence about telling your story, and it's just a wonderful experience.
Tell us a little bit about the editing and getting it down to 5 pages and sending you in one direction and then another direction. Tell us about that process and how it helped you get to here tonight.
I love the process, and I say trust the process. And you and Marnie know what you're doing, and I trusted you the whole time. I just thought that, I was like, this is what a writer does. You go through the editing. I'm living the writer's life. This is what I was born to do and I've been dreaming to do. And you kind of helped me get a sweet taste of it, and I want to keep going with it.
Kandace, how did it feel? Not every actor ever gets to meet the writer of a piece. What is it like to have an audience?
Yeah.
To be able to represent her and know she's watching?
It's honestly super intimidating to have your writer in the room, but it also, I think, added to the connection to the piece because you get to ask the questions, and I got a really thorough character description, so it was helpful for me. But yeah, it was really exciting to be able to bring her words to life and put my own twist on it, but knowing I was honoring her story.
Tell me a little bit about the memoir community that was supporting you tonight. Did you feel it in the audience?
Oh, yes, I felt it. Everybody.
Last comment, anything that you would share with anyone about this experience that has never done it? What would you last thoughts?
Do it. Just do it.